My little brother called me and told me he wanted to go for a walk on Lake Superior. I'm not closer to anyone than I am with this man. I had to tell you something. I'm like, okay, I'm gay. I was like, okay. And I mean, it's big news. He hadn't shared with anyone in his entire life. So I was like, well, you know I love you. He's like, yeah, I know. It's like, so I'm here for you. And he's like, yeah, I know. And then he said, so, do you have any questions? And I thought it was like a press conference. Like, I made my statement. I'll take questions from the audience now. I said, I do have one question. What are you going to do? And he's like, what do you mean, what am I going to do? I just told you I'm gay. You just shared with me an experience. You experience attraction to members of the same sex. That's all you told me. I want to know, what are you going to do about that? Because an attraction isn't sinful. Having an experience isn't sinful. Like, because all of us, here's the thing, everyone in this room, we're attracted to stuff that we probably shouldn't be, right? Well, I have this attraction. Okay, that's a real thing. What are you going to do about it, though? He's like, what do you mean, what am I going to do about it? Like, well, you have free will still. You can either choose to act on this or you choose to not act on this. Just like, I mean, I have to tell you, confession time. I'm attracted to women. Like, whoa, no, like, no, seriously. So people are like, but you're a priest. Like, I know. It's weird. I thought it would go away when they laid hands on me. I was like, I got up, I'm like, shoot, seriously? Still? And yet, I mean, and I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just saying that, like, no, all of us have these things that we're called to not just say yes to. Because you have freedom. And that's the thing, it's so important. Because so many times what the world will say is this: if you have a desire for something, you got to give into it. You have more strength in you and through the power of the Holy Spirit than the rest of the world says you have. But the church says, no, listen, you experience this attraction or that attraction, doesn't matter what it is. Under the lordship of Jesus, you can experience freedom in this. If you experience same-sex attraction, you're not accepted, you're not tolerated, you belong. But an experience is not an identity. And the big fear so many people have is, if I live up to the church's teaching for living chastely in life, then I'm just going to be lonely. If I live up to the church's teaching, like if we say that the men and women who experience same-sex attraction can't act out in a sexual, genital way on that attraction, then they're just going to end up lonely. And I know about the fear of loneliness. I mean, that was part of my discernment to be going to seminary. We think of love. We've taken this huge concept of love. We reduced it to romantic love. And we've taken this concept of romantic love and reduced it to sex. Love is bigger than sex. Love is bigger than romance. In fact, the Greeks used to have 4 words for different kinds of love. And actually, eros, or romantic love, was the smallest, was the least kind of love. So living out the church's teaching doesn't leave someone lonely and desperate and desolate and abandoned. The church says, no, you're called to love. That in fact, we can't know ourselves unless we become a gift of love. We can't know ourselves unless we have sex. But everyone here is called to deep and profound friendship. What does the church teach when it comes to how we as Christians are called to treat our brothers and sisters who experience same-sex attraction? What the church says is any sign of unjust discrimination in their regard must be avoided. But they're called, like everyone else, they're called, all of us, not them, us, are called to unite whatever sufferings they experience in life, just like we all are, because it's not about them, it's about us, to the sufferings of Jesus, to achieve the heights of Christian perfection. What is a heterosexual's highest call? A heterosexual person's highest call is to be a saint. What is someone who experiences same-sex attraction? What's their highest call? The call in life is to be a saint. I know so many men and women who are Catholic, who are dedicated to Jesus Christ, who experience same-sex attraction, and they commit their lives. Like, no, I'm going to live chastely. I'm going to have as many great friendships as possible. I'm going to dive into prayer as deeply as possible. I'm going to serve and love people as deeply as possible. And they have these incredibly full lives and the incredibly transformed lives. These people, these men and women, are like, no, my experience is I'm same-sex attracted. I always have been. I don't know if it'll ever change. Doesn't matter, though, because what I can do is I know I'm called to love, called to friendship, called to chastity, called to be a saint. And I cannot wait for the day. I cannot wait for the day when the church canonizes the first known homosexual man or homosexual woman saint who dedicated their lives to living chastely in abundant love in the power of Jesus Christ. Because that will be an incredible day, When it'll be a message. And this amazing thing is this. The amazing thing is this. That person, that saint could be in this room. That saint could be in this room. Who maybe you always thought, no, I don't belong. I'm not part of this. I need to leave. No. No. You belong.
What produced this? Honestly, guys, this is not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is contraception. That's the biggest problem. Because what does contraception do? When a man and a woman come together sexually, and they remove the possibility of children, they also remove what makes their union distinctly male and female, distinctly heterosexual. It becomes just, well, initially the desire is just union without procreation, and soon they don't even have union, they just have pleasure. And soon they don't even have that. That's the biggest problem. Because once contraception is introduced, then we don't know what sex is for. True story. How's this for true story? True story. Guy comes in to meet with a priest. The priest who had prepared him and his wife for marriage. And he says, he's upset. He says, oh, Father, I don't know how it happened, but my wife is pregnant. What do you mean you don't know how it happened? You know? Only in our culture could that be said. I don't know how it happened. We have so distorted the meaning of sexuality, mainly by contraception, that we can say crazy things like, I don't know how it happened. So that's the linchpin. Once you removed the teaching on contraception, everything just started to fall apart. So what happens when contraception comes about? Promiscuity skyrockets. Second, divorce skyrockets. Adultery. And the homosexual community looks at that and they see promiscuity, they see adultery, they see divorce, and they go, oh, and they see couples having no children, and they go, like, we can do that, you know? What's so sacred about marriage now? So, contraception took the sanctity out of marriage and paved the way for this. That's why I didn't begin with homosexuality, did I? I began with this. Because contraception separates procreation and union. Once you separate those two, everything's up for grabs.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard this before. You know, you guys, love is love. Love is love. Who are you to say someone can't love? You should be able to let people get married because they love each other. And I say that's a great point, wonderful point. And we don't want to deny love. Here's the question. Are all human relationships that involve love, are they all marriage? Not at all. And so to say that there are two human beings or more who have a loving relationship, do we need to call that marriage? No, because we know that love is not the distinctive characteristic of marriage. It doesn't belong solely to marriage. Okay, so maybe it's this. Maybe it's commitment. Maybe it's, it's not just love. It's a commitment for a whole life. But we know this. We know that commitment isn't the sole essential element of matrimony or of marriage. Because we have a lot of human relationships that involve commitment. What about mutual support? Like there's a sense of like, there's not only love, there's not only commitment, there's also this mutual support. And I remember I live right down the street from a Benedictine monastery. And the nuns who live in this Benedictine monastery, they love each other. They have a level of commitment to each other and to the Lord. And they have a level of mutual support that they have for each other. Now, will we call that marriage? So no, because it's lacking even more central element. What about exclusivity? And here's where we're going to get to like when we're landing. Because what we're going to hear a lot of times is this. What we're going to hear is that you're denying someone love, the ability to commit to each other. You're denying someone that mutual support and respect that they get. No one's denying those things. Those things are all good things, and those things are all immediately accessible without the intervention of a redefinition of what marriage is. All of those things, love, commitment, support, exclusivity, those are all immediately accessible without redefining what marriage is.
What that amounts to is that you're claiming that you have the right to make the rules and everyone else has to follow your rules, and not everyone agrees with your rules. And what's so bad if somebody says, I want to call football baseball? If it's not harming you, if it's not affecting your marriage, if it's not in any way interrupting your life, how is it fair for you to just arbitrarily say that you can't call it this? But they're not doing anything to harm you. It's not fair that you should try to restrict their ability to fall in love and get married when you just don't like the terminology issue. Who cares what you think about that? That's not fair.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when you ask the question, who cares what you think about that? You're right, nobody. And nobody should care what I think about it. Because I didn't invent it, I received it. We all received it. Here's the dangerous experiment that we're in the middle of. That for all of human history, even though homosexual practices have been a reality of all human civilizations, there has never, ever been a redefinition of marriage to also mean homosexual relationships. And so here's the dangerous experiment. Like, who am I? I'm nobody. I'm the recipient. We're all the recipient of this institution that does what? You know, we have to understand, the state did not create marriage. That marriage precedes politics. Marriage precedes culture. Marriage precedes the state. Marriage is the fundamental building block. I think we could all agree that marriage is a fundamental building block of human society. So here's the question. If you're an architect, and you said, okay, here's a great material. There's this kind of concrete block is, I know it's solid. I know it works. I know if you stack them, you can only stack them up to about, 3-4 stories, because this is the kind of, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to change the composition of these building blocks and then just start building. And I think that kind of idea of like, who am I? I'm nobody. We are all the recipients of something that has created a culture that has pros and cons. But what will happen if we cease to promote heterosexual bonding, which has created, yes, some bad cultures, but also some incredible cultures? I think it's too big of an issue just to jump into without doing some other kind of work first.
In one sentence, well, maybe more than one, but I would say that there are many things in life. I'm now taking the Catholic apologist point of view. There are many things in life that are not fair, but they're not intended to be fair. So you may say it's not fair that you call this honesty when you tell the truth, but over here, if somebody is not telling the truth, why don't we call that honesty too? It's not fair. Well, whether you agree or disagree, we all know that truth is what it is. Anything outside of that truth is not going to be truth. So it's not a matter of fairness that we're not allowing somebody who perjures himself in a courtroom, for example, to continue to call himself a truthful person. We can begin to see that it's not really a matter of fairness in certain aspects, this being one of them.